Hello, Attorney Prashanthi.
Hello.
My husband is in the process of transferring his H-1B to a new employer. Does my H-4 need to be transferred as well? I didn't see an employer name printed on the H-4. The attorney said it's easy to keep the same timeline together, but I'm worried this would stretch the preparation time and delay the approval process of my H-4. He has already stepped into the 60-day grace period. Now, this is another thing. Is it required to file the H-4 while H-1B is transferred?
So I think we should take one question at a time because there are like five questions here.
Right.
So the first question, does my H4 need to be transferred? Um, so every time your spouse files a H1 transfer or a H1 extension or amendment, your H4 does not need to be touched as long as as long as you are in status, as long as you don't require an extension. You don't need to, every time your husband changes jobs, you don't need to file a transfer. But there is a practical aspect to this, because of which you might want to actually do it that way, even though you don't need to. So every time you file with your spouse, that means when the H4 and the H1 are filed together, the H4 processing time is the same as the H1 processing time. So they approve all the entire package together. So you have a distinct advantage of filing your H4 along with the spouse's H1 because then it'll be processed. It'll be processed faster. Say your husband's employer files it premium processing, then it'll be processed in, as soon as a week because that's how long premium processing is taking now. Especially if you have a H4 EAD as well, everything gets processed together. So there's an advantage in doing that, even though you don't need to. The second question is, I didn't see an employer printed on the H4. There's never an employer's name printed on your H4 visa or your H4 approval or the I-94. That's only for your spouse because you're a dependent. As long as your spouse remains in status and your I-94 is current, that's all is required of you. Also, then the next question that you're saying is that she's worried that this would stretch the preparation time and delay approval. No, it doesn't. Um, Filing everything together doesn't increase the processing time of the H1. And even if the person is in 60 days grace, remember that you only have to file on time. So there might be some delay getting your paperwork, preparing your H4, and then filing. But as long as you're able to do that, filing the package together doesn't necessarily delay the process from the USCIS processing time point of view. Did anyone have experience keeping the original H4 while H1 transferred? So as I think I answered the rest of the questions um, that the person had.
So, theoretically speaking, if an H-4 is valid at the time of changing employers, the so-called H-1B transfer to another employer, and somebody has a 3-year, 2-year 9 months validity, they just used up 3 months from the previous employer, so they do not have to reapply if it's not required. They don't have to reapply each time when the principal H-1B holder is changing employers. Is
That's
that
correct.
correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what happens if they go for a visa stamping? How does it work? They use the previous petition, the original petition that was approved, or every time the H-4 goes for a visa stamping, they they use the current H-1B or relevant documents from the current employer.
So when the H4 goes for the visa stamping, they will use the latest H1 approval of the spouse. Um, they will not use an old one, obviously, because there's no need to. There is a current H4, H1B approval, so they should use the most current one, and of course, submit other documents such as the marriage certificate to show relationship and the spouse's pay stub show that the spouse is maintaining his or her status.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question.
You're welcome.